Hi everyone, welcome to the Garden of Eden series, part 6. In this part we'll be looking at the first Garden of Eden and attached prophecy in all the books of religion that is relevant to the location. The first book I like to look at is the first book of Adam and Eve, chapter 14 verse 2. But God, the Lord, said to Adam, "Indeed I say to you, this darkness will pass from you. Every day I have determined for you until the fulfillment of my covenant, which has occurred 2,000 years ago, when I will save you and bring you back into the garden, into the house of light you long for, in which there is no darkness. I will bring you to it in the kingdom of heaven." And that is precisely what has occurred with the revealing of the Urantia book, revealing the hidden made manifest. And it's all, the book, the Urantia book, is all to do with the kingdom of heaven in its expansion from what we have today. In this image is the Father's stone shrine in the center of the city of Eden, with its walls and canals, as discovered. The first book of Adam and Eve, chapter 10, 7 to 9. When Adam and Eve heard these words from God, they cried a bitter cry, and Adam entreated God to let him return into the garden and look at it a second time. But God said to Adam, "I have made you a promise. When that promise is fulfilled, I will bring you back into the garden, you and your righteous descendants." And God ceased to commune with Adam. So the extra bit we have here is that Adam and his righteous descendants will be brought back to the garden, which has precisely occurred in 2 expeditions off the coast of Cyprus, led by the Urantia book, the Book of the Lamb, revealed at the end, for a new beginning for the next 1,000 years at least. In the book Jubilees, it explains, in my view, it has a reflection of what occurred to the Garden of Eden. What occurred in the destruction of Eden is that the Gibraltar Dam broke due to a violent earthquake, and over time the Sea of Mayuk filled up, creating tectonic plate movement and violent volcanic action, which, coupled with earthquakes and with the extra weight of the water, submerged the Sicilian land bridge. Then the Sea of Atl filled up and eventually destroyed and submerged the first Garden of Eden, coupled with violent earthquakes and tectonic movement. In the book of Jubilees, I feel it explains this whole action. "And for Ham came out of the second portion, beyond the Gihon, toward the south, to the right of the garden, and it proceeds to all the fire mountains," which would be volcanoes. And incidentally, Cyprus has Mount Olympus, which is an extinct volcano, but that could very well be active at the time of Eden 38,000 years ago. And the other area where there is fire mountains is around Sicily, Mount Etna, to be precise, and that I'm sure that would have reacted as well to the Gibraltar break. And it goes toward the west to the Sea of Atl. So we're going to the west of Mount Olympus into the Sea of Atl, and it goes west until it reaches the Sea of Mayuk, which is the Sea of Mayuk here, the one of which everything descends that is destroyed. So water descends out of the Sea of Mayuk and destroys everything in the Sea of Atl with sea level rise. So we've got the line here, the Garden of Eden here, Mount Olympus there. To the west of that is Atl and the Sea of Mayuk here, with the Sicilian land bridge submerging. In the Urantia book, it says the peninsula had been overrun by these lower grade nodites for almost 4,000 years after Adam left the garden, when in connection with the violent activity of the surrounding volcanoes and the submergence of the Sicilian land bridge to Africa, the eastern floor of the Mediterranean Sea sank, carrying down beneath the waters the whole Adenic Peninsula. So there you can see precisely what could have occurred, or which did occur, and the Urania book seems to verify violent activity of the surrounding volcanoes, and in other sections violent earthquakes. Continuing with the Book of Jubilees, chapter 26, sweet spices acceptable before the Lord on the mount, for the Lord has 4 places on the earth: the Garden of Eden, which has been revealed with the Book of the Lamb, and the Mount of the East, and this mount on which thou art this day, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion, Mount Zion will be sanctified in the new creation for a sanctification of the earth. So we can see that Mount Zion is connected to the Garden of Eden. So we have this relationship here. When this was written was probably in Mesopotamia, somewhere in the east of Eden. In the following is another reference to the first Garden of Eden connected with prophecy from the Book of Jubilees, chapter 23. Testified against them all, and he was taken from amongst the children of men, and we conducted him into the Garden of Eden in majesty and honour, and behold, there he writes down the condemnation. So we have a connection with the Garden of Eden, being conducted into the Garden of Eden in the revealing from the hidden, made manifest as led by the book, in majesty and honour, in all truth, in truth and righteousness, and therefore, as a consequence of this, the condemnation is written down. So there's a writing down of the judgment, which is also confirmed in a book in the New Testament. And the judgment of the world and all the wickedness of the children of men, and on account of it God brought the waters of the flood upon all of the land of Eden. So we confirm again that the land of Eden, the peninsula of Eden, was flooded, for there he was set as a sign. And the land of Eden and that whole experience in the past being revealed today is a sign of the judgment of God. And there he should testify against all children of men, that he should recount all the deeds of the generations until the day of condemnation, and he burnt the incense of the sanctuary. So the judgment is written down, and it's written down from the beginning right through the generations of men until the end. In the book of Noah, it shows another description of the Mediterranean deluge, chapter 67, verse 4, and they will shut up those angels who showed iniquity in that burning valley. First Eden, I might suggest, which my grandfather Enoch had showed me previously in the west. So they're in Mesopotamia, writing this down, and they're talking about the first Garden of Eden to the west of the second Garden of Eden, near the mountains of gold and silver and iron and soft metals and tin. And Eden, the Eden Peninsula, is very rich in precious metals and stone, and it's right in a volcanic area which produced these type of metals. And I saw that valley, the Valley of Eden, in which there was a great disturbance and a heaving of the waters. So it recounts the great disturbance of the flood, the Gibraltar break, and the submergence of the Sicilian land bridge, and the heaving of the waters, the flooding waters, which submerged Eden. And all this happened from the fiery molten metal, volcanic again, referring to volcanic disturbance, and the disturbance, i.e. the earthquake, which disturbed the waters in that place a smell of sulphur was produced, and it was associated with those waters, those flooding waters of the Atlantic from the west, and that Valley of Eden, of the angels who led men astray, burns under the ground. So obviously we know that there was the Adamic default, led by the leader of the rebellion of the sons of God, Caligustia, and that particular valley is the valley of the shadow of death, the Valley of Eden. And though the valleys of that same area flow out rivers of fire, where those angels will be punished who led astray those on dry ground. So it assumes that this area is under the water, or submerged. Here is just a diagram of the various fault lines in the Mediterranean, and the study area is actually the old Garden of Eden, which the Cyprus Arc fault lays underneath. And this is the actual valley of the Garden of Eden, right here, being studied for volcanic action and tectonic plate movement. In Enoch chapter 17, he also refers to the fire of the west. And they took me to the living waters, to the fire of the west, the volcano, which receives every setting of the sun. And I came to a river of fire, river of lava, in which the fire flows like water and discharges itself into the great sea toward the west. So in my view, that would be speaking about the Sea of Atl. And there's just a Mount Olympus here, and maybe it was active at that time, and rivers of molten lava would have flowed into the Great Sea. The book Jubilees again, to the right of the garden, it proceeds to all fire mountains and goes toward the west to the Sea of Atl. So we have this description here. In the book of Noah, he also describes a similar situation. The book of Noah, and they will shut up the angels who showed iniquity in that burning valley, Eden Valley, which my great-grandfather Enoch had shown me previously in the west, near the mountains of gold, silver and iron and soft metal and tin, which we read before, but we've got 3 different books speaking about the same area and what happened. Now the Urandi book describes the mountains surrounding the garden abounded in precious stones and metals. Though these received very little attention, the dominant idea was to be the glorification of horticulture and exaltation of agriculture. So they knew about these precious stones and metals, but it didn't mean much to them. So that again confirms the location of the first Garden of Eden, in a volcanic area, or close to a tectonic plate active area. And, it's a little bit different to the second Garden of Eden in the Persian Gulf. In this part we'll be looking at Ezekiel. Here is another clear description of the first Garden of Eden and Adam. This describes the Assyrian. Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon with fair branches and with a shadowing shroud, and of a high stature, and his top, the stone temple, as we see in the image, was among the thick boughs. I would suggest irrigation ditches. The waters made him great. The deep set him up on high, the Edenic peninsula, which her rivers running round about his plants, and set out her little rivers unto all the trees of the field. So that again suggests irrigation ditches full of water, and water coming down from the mountains. So I'll be finishing off this part now, and I'll be taking this up in part 7.